Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Life Chronicles and Deep Dives podcast. I'm here with Coach Cornelia, all the way in Romania.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back.
And my name is Coach Micah Ranjit, and I'm in the United States. Today, we are going to be talking about what's the point. Now, this is an interesting topic because there really is no definitive subject that we'll be talking about. So, Coach Cornelia, take it away on your take on what is the point.
I don't know what the point is. This is why I wanted to talk about it. Maybe we can find it out together and see what's the point of anything or everything. What's the point of I'm thinking, what's the point of being in this world? What's the point of suffering? What's the point of working? That's my favorite. I would like to find out why. What's the point of struggling, getting angry every day, I was watching myself today being so agitated, having so many things to do and trying to get home in time and so on. And that it just I stopped and asked myself, what is the point?
Okay. So,
And I've been reading a lot about this, and you can talk about this subject from many points of view, from a nihilistic point of view, from an optimistic point of view, and so on. But no one can give you a straight answer. What's the point?
okay, so let me see if I can throw something in here that might jog your brain a little bit, right? So,
Mm.
let's remove all of the layers of society, right? So, society is like an onion, right? And you've got all of these layers of things that surround the human being, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's the point? Well, if you take away all of the layers of society and higher thinking, what do we have? We are animals. We're literally animals, just like, a rabbit, just like, any other mammal on the planet. If,
Except we don't have the fur, so we are totally naked. So we
yeah, I
look at
mean, yeah. I mean, some people have more fur than others.
yeah.
And that's fine. I just um look at it as, if you take away all of the layers of society, what do you have, and what do you have to look forward to? Well, because of society, we've gotten like complacent on instinctual stuff. But ultimately, the point of living, and this is just an opinion, right? And everyone's always searching for like a higher meaning, and I think that comes with like higher thought. There's always something above that we need to like achieve or look forward to. However, instinctually, and if you base it off of behavior patterns of every other animal or every other species or subtype on the planet, it is to procreate, to basically pass the genetic code forward. And for us, that is children. So
Yeah.
it's quite interesting. There's not really like a what we do in life, right? So whether we're life coaching, whether we're, going to work at a factory, whether we're farming, whether we're, doing some computer work or advancing human technology, scientific, we're saving lives. Those are things that are achieved in life, but they are not the meaning of life, in my opinion. There is really not a meaning of life. It's more of just like what you do during life. And then if you remove the layers of society and higher thinking, the purpose is to procreate.
So to survive.
To survive. Yeah.
Yeah, so we're getting a little bit Darwinistic here. So, and I'm not sure. It's not that I'm not sure. I am very sure that I don't believe in Darwinism. So this is one of the theories I don't believe in. But if we've been talking about this in podcast we had about facts, scientific facts. And the Darwinism might be the closest from all of the theories, might be the closest of proving our meaning, let's say, this survival thing. We have to procreate to survive, just like any other species does.
Mhm.
But if you go on the creationist theory and we
Mhm.
think about we have a creator, then you get to a point where you don't find this explanation viable anymore, I think.
Right. So yeah, and religion and like the creationist theory or like those kind of theories are all man designed. They're built by man, right? So remember when I was talking earlier about the things we do in life, they carry on as like a what we did, right? Like a legacy, right? The creationist theory was created by man. However, we can say whatever we want. And I know
You,
this from dealing with anybody.
you
Oh, go
think
ahead.
that the story of Adam and Eve is just a legend?
I think there's some truth to every legend or every story, right? There's got to be some truth to everything, um, in some degree. However, I think that by creating people in like 7 days or creating the planet in 7 days, right? Um, that story, that ideology, that belief system was created by people. So if we're going to talk about what's the point, why would somebody create a belief system for other people, right? Rather than themselves, right? Like I can believe whatever I want to believe without having to, and I'm telling you guys what I believe, but I'm not actually making you believe what I want to believe, nor am I suggesting that you try to believe what I want to believe. Religion and the creationist theory does just that. So what's the point? Well, if we look at
It it might give you a better point, right? A better meaning, a better purpose, rather than this instinctual thing that we just how can I be more gentle, not say but we just we are just trying to survive as species. So going on the creationist theory a little bit might give us a little bit more meaning, more inspirational meaning, maybe not
Mhm.
necessarily religious, because I don't see the creationist theory equal with the religious part. It might be anyone, it can be aliens who created us. I mean, it's just, I really do believe that it's a strong force around us, even if we are creating it, or that force creates us or something like this. It is something, I think that's something, I cannot believe the Darwinist theory where you just exist because you evolved from a crocodile. I cannot, my mind cannot bear it.
I think there's a few more evolutionary jumps in that aspect. But let's say, right, the creationist theory was created by people, right? And I've said that. Now you take that and you say, what's the point of them coming up with this theory, right? So everybody's been looking for this meaning of life and why we have higher power and all of these other things. And if, again, opinion only, if I was looking at a way to get people to align with my thought process, I would create like an ideology or a theory that would guide them towards what I wanted them to do, right? So like if I mean, and that's I'm not saying all religions do this. I mean, there's good parts of all religions and all theories when it comes to human beings and life. But if I wanted to control a population or control how people behaved rather than letting them go do whatever, this is how you would achieve that, by creating theories that then can create theories on top of them, right? So the creationist theory, it subtract aliens out of it, right? Let's say it's man-made, the creationist theory, right? If aliens did create us, right, it's not a higher power, it's just another species doing, like, a lab experiment under a microscope, not unlike people do today in medical school or, in labs across the world. So those microbes that these people work on, they're just, I don't know if they're thinking,
Us,
you
us,
know. Yeah,
us a few
yeah.
million years before.
Yeah,
Yeah, so it's us millions of years before in our times.
yeah. And now, okay, so you're talking creationist theory. On top of creationist theory, you throw in like religious ideology. So each group of people is going to try to create their own version of what is right, and what is wrong.
Mm.
Um, Animalistic humans, people that operate in their primal instincts. These are your psychopaths, sociopaths, narcissists, right? Those people operate in a like primitive mindset. Like, so that's how they operate, like animals, essentially, right? Everything is driven to guide a person. And even in higher thinking, everything is driven by people going towards pleasure and away from pain, right? And
Mm.
so if you apply that to even higher thinking human beings, you can essentially see how they behave and essentially predict how people will behave. They're going to go towards pleasure and away from pain if you give them that option.
Actually, I'm not very sure that the creationist theory was created by humans, or maybe just written by humans. And maybe if you're going to the religious part, um, there are proofs for Jesus' life, for example. There are plenty of proofs. I mean, there's no secret. I was reading about the Shroud of Turin. I'm not sure if you know about it. It is the material that Jesus was wearing when he was put on the cross and then killed and then buried. And they found it. They found this in his tomb. So they tried all the possible scientific tests to see if it's the real deal, and
Mhm.
it is. So with the Jesus part, we know that it's scientifically proven. Then I'm sure if you go to India, you will find out that the Buddhism has proofs as well, and Buddha indeed existed. He was a human. And so on. So maybe we just the Enoch book, everything was written. I'm thinking that these people received some messages and they just wrote those messages. I like to believe so. I mean, that's my choice of being on the creationist part rather than the Darwinist part. Because on the Darwinist part, it just seemed that it's just biology. And it ends and it's bye-bye. And I don't want to believe it. I don't want to believe that after we die, there's nothing.
So, I mean, it's not necessarily true that there's nothing. Energy is energy no matter what. So it doesn't go away. It just changes into something else. So, I mean, there is something to be said about that. As far as, like the creationist theory and religion, I have no doubt that these people I have no doubt that these people existed across, the globe, right? Allah, Jesus, Buddha, right? Um, then there's several other ones like, like Native Americans, they're sun gods, like they're I'm not very versed in Native American heritage, but like Aztecs, Mayans, they all had their own religious figures that were at the top that or creationist ideas. Now, without the sun, there would be no earth or
Mm,
energy. So all of the energy comes from the sun. So that is something to be said. Now, with all of the theories, the way I look at it is they all might be true, right? I'm not saying they're not true when I talk about like the animalistic side of human nature, where it's literally just towards pleasure, away from pain, procreate, pass the genetic code forward. I mean, that's a very scaled back version of everything. However, I cannot say for a fact that the other ones, other theories, other belief systems don't exist in reality, that they're not true, right?
mm.
There are certain aspects of them that I could say are not true. But outside of that, I can't discount something. I can't say something. I can't toss away something that has a possibility of being true. That includes, you know, aliens, right?
Mm,
That includes, you know, Jesus. That includes, any number of religious figures throughout history that people have believed in. Now, there's a behavior pattern that I can point to with all of those things. They've, all of these people have had somebody that has been in the middle and somebody who's been higher and somebody who's been lower. There's always something above the
mm,
person that's in the middle delivering the message to the person that's below. And that's a pattern that I've seen across any belief system, right? So whether it's creationists with the aliens, if you have aliens, they're delivering something to a higher human being that can then deliver it to a lower human being. And I say that relative because all the way I look at it is everybody is equal. However, positionally, people have different power dynamics, different ways that they can be in power, political power, religious power,
mm.
um, physical wartime power, right? There's always something higher telling somebody in the middle how to do something, how to telling somebody in the middle how to tell somebody how to do something at the bottom. And if you
Yeah.
look at that, it's literally a pattern for every belief system,
Mm.
religious ideology, even creationism, as you said. And that's a pattern. And I don't know
I
why
think I
that's a
think
pattern.
what I think is that this is the human-made thing. This intermediate person that always somehow delivers the message that they get from the higher power, right? But if we just read, for example, let's talk about the Bible, because I'm a Christian, so that's what I know most of.
Sure.
If you read the Bible and read what Jesus said, he said that we don't need these people. We just have to, what Jesus says in Matthew, he says that if you want to talk to God or pray, just go in your room, close the door, and just talk to God. Say the prayer and talk to God freely. So he never said that we have this, we need these intermediaries. And this is where the problem, I think, it comes when some people are using this information to manipulate the big masses, which it's us. We should just read what our the Christians have the Bible, right, and Jesus. We should read his words and follow those words. Of course, he sent the apostles, and we had one of them, Andrew, who's been right here in Romania, maybe 50 kilometers from where I stay. And he was one of the Jesus apostles, and he told them to go in the world and try to spread the word about the New Testament.
So, I mean, I look at, and I know we kind of like moved away from the totality of what's the point. Um,
Mm,
but I look at religion, and belief systems as a form of control. All governments, all religions are all a form of control, right? So what does that need? That needs people to believe in something above them, and it needs people that are above those people to believe that they can help the other people below them, uh, control them, right? So, like I said, even in the creationist theory, there's always somebody above, somebody in the middle, and somebody below, right? That's the same thing with government, right? There's always somebody above, somebody in the middle, somebody below, right? Now, if we take the people that are going towards pleasure away from pain, they're going towards security and away from, the possibility that they won't have that safety, right? That's why they go to governments. That's why they go to, you know, religions for that belief. It's like their hope is what drives
mm,
them to these things. The hope that there is something better, a meaning in life. The hope that there is those things. There's
yeah.
not a problem with that. I respect everybody's opinion to believe that. I'm just looking at it from a very, very scaled back point of view. If you take everything away, you take the hope away, you take all that, what is the point? To me, the point is control, and not all religions are bad. Some religions have like a convert or die policy that they like to spread across the globe. Other religions have, like doctrines and rules that people should follow. Some of those rules I think are, good, uh, morally. I think some of those rules are good. So, and a lot of religions have morally good
They,
rules. Some
they,
of them
they
have
keep
bad rules.
they keep our instincts down.
Yeah, and that's it. See, there it is, right? Remember what I said, like in the beginning of the podcast, right? We're all animals, right? The rules that hope that we're looking for, that safety and that security, that camaraderie, that social interaction that we'll get, we're subverting our animal instincts for those things. Now, as a higher thinking species, right? That's to be expected. We look for those social interactions. We look for camaraderies, people that believe in similar things as us, like friends and family and comfort, right? The nurturing spirits that are throughout life. Like the government is always like somebody that is going towards safety away from freedom, right? Like if we all had our own freedom, to protect ourselves, to protect our property, and we all stayed in like a social construct of morality, which is very hard to convince everybody to, maintain that same thing, which is again control, right? But if everybody just kind of like stayed to themselves, stop trying to like hurt or control everybody else, like we wouldn't really need a government. We wouldn't really need a religion. Um, I see some rules as like population control, some governments, it's all about, remember, towards pleasure, away from pain, towards power, away from losing it, right? Towards control, away from losing control, right? Towards pleasure, away from pain. So if you look at that specific behavior pattern echoes through every institute that has been created throughout life. Now, if one religion is right or one government type is right, why are there so many ones claiming that they're the right type of government, the right type of religion, right? And that's all subjective to the location and the people that
Sure.
have broken off into different groups and decided to create these different things based off of how they believe, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
Unfortunately, there is no place that I mean, maybe you could go to Antarctica if you could get there, right? But I mean, it's pretty cold there, right? But there is almost no place on the planet that somebody can go and not have somebody else trying to control them. And
It
that
used
to me is sad.
it used to be Alaska. Not anymore. Yeah, there's too many people now there.
I mean, you can still get lost in like the Alaskan wilderness up in northern part of Canada, there's places where you can get lost, but here's the catch. You're still in a country under a government in a state or a province or locality, right? You know, there's always so many layers, and I think I'm on the search for freedom. So for me, what's the point for me is finding freedom for me, right?
What is
I,
freedom? Because this should be, I mean, it's not that it should be, it is relative, right? It's relative what freedom is for me, and
mhm.
maybe it's something different from your idea of freedom. What's freedom for you?
Freedom for me would be a place where I could go where there is no government, no religion, nobody telling me what to do, how to live my life, uh,
Mm,
how fast I can drive for somebody else, or for my safety, right? What I can, consume and can't consume. Um, that would be freedom to me, right? I'm autonomous. I'm in charge of myself, right? Now, in that place, am I responsible to other people though? Right. And so
mm-hmm.
that's why it's so hard for me to find that freedom, is because there's no place I can go where I can have that freedom. Um, because there's always some level of oversight in with like our digital footprints and properties and taxes and all of these other things that we have. It's very hard to even reduce that
Yeah, but
to.
same at the same time, I'm thinking that having these rules, it's important because there's so many people that are not responsible or reasonable. So
Mhm.
it is impossible to have a normal society without these rules. And unfortunately, these rules have been strengthened in the last years because there's been so many unreasonable people walking around us.
Right. I mean,
So,
there's a lot of unrest. Yeah.
yeah. So I think it's pretty if maybe just to find your own group of people, but you don't have anywhere on this planet. Maybe move on another planet. And having the same people just like you are, now run by ego without wanting to impose themselves, without wanting to have control. um, that's when you maybe might have a peaceful community without having to force these rules on that community.
Mhm. Right. And so like I'm all about autonomy. Like it's my life, my body, right? I should be allowed to control what I'm doing with my body and what I want to do, which is why like we've talked on abortion, right? I'm do whatever you want kind of person. Who am I to say whether you are allowed to do that or not, right? You live with that choice, not me, right? Maybe I don't think it's okay to do. Maybe I do. The point is that it's not me. I'm not in charge of that body. I don't have to live with those consequences, right? So same thing when I look at like um my property, me protecting myself, right? These are my things. How I protect them, right? Somebody tries to steal something from me, right? I'm going to protect my property. I'm not going to
Mm,
wait for, government or somebody to try to save it. I'm going to protect my property because it's mine and I'm responsible for it. Right
sure.
now, that other person, they forfeit a fraction of whatever they autonomy they have when I'm protecting my property, right? Or protecting myself or somebody else that's, like getting hurt, right? And that's the way I look at it. If everybody just kind of like did their own thing and didn't try to hurt anybody else or steal anybody else's stuff, and was able to morally survive, that would be fine. But unfortunately, we're in as humans
Mm,
towards pleasure away from pain, right? If we could do something bad and get away with it, most people will do that.
sure.
You know what I mean?
Mm,
If you can do something bad and get away with it, most people would do that. And even if they can't get away with it, they'll try to cover it up, right? There's always, and that goes not just even, everyday people, that's kids, that's, right? It's not just psychopaths, sociopaths, narcissists. That's like
everybody.
most people, right?
Mm, yeah,
Um, and that's the animalistic instinct, right? So we go back to what's the point? We're always looking at these rules, these societies, these jobs, right? And we'll get on jobs here in a minute, but it's all about controlling the population in order to prevent them from reverting to their animalistic instinctual nature,
but
right?
why?
Now,
We can keep going with this. Why? What's the point of controlling the? Why shouldn't we fight each other? Why shouldn't we steal from each other? Why shouldn't we follow our instincts from this point of view? What's the point of controlling? What's the point of, for example, you hear so many situations later with people who are trying to control the world and impose their opinions on us, uh, forced in most of the cases. So I'm always thinking, what's the point for those people? What do you want? You're gonna die one day, die
right?
anyway.
Yeah.
So you're still gonna die,
It's
even if you're changing your blood with kids' blood, like some conspirational theorists are saying. You're still gonna die.
mhm.
So what's the point in what you're doing?
There's got to be some level of energy exchange or power or control that they believe that they're gaining, right? So now we're talking about a belief system, right? If I believe that I can get control over other people, that will make me rich, right? Towards pleasure, away from pain. Get rich, not be poor, right? I'm not saying I'm going to do that, but like
Most,
that's the behavior pattern that you're looking at.
sure, but most of them are already filthy rich. I mean, it's
Oh
you
yeah.
cannot get richer than then it comes the power in the game, right? They want to have the power,
Mhm.
but they're still gonna die. So
Sure.
even if you unless you have a contract with someone from the other world who's promising you, I don't know what you're gonna be the um you're gonna be the chief in hell, for example, you're gonna have the keys from hell or something like this.
Mhm.
I don't see why you would do it, because you're gonna die anyway. So unless you have a contract on the other side and you're gonna get something over there, or that's what maybe they believe, right?
Mhm.
I don't see why you would put so much effort in this kind of things, except having this um being this sick with power.
And there it is. See,
Mm.
look, we've just narrowed it down all the way. And what does that bring us back to? Dominance, animalistic dominance, right? So it doesn't matter what layer of society we put on it, whether it's government, whether it's religion, whether it's like, business, whatever it is,
Mm.
it always, if you take off all those layers, it always comes back to animalistic dominance over somebody else. There's
But
always that
not with everyone.
desire.
It's not with everyone. I like to believe that some people are evolving into different humans. Maybe like Homo sapiens appeared and evolved, we can evolve in something else maybe.
Mhm.
And I like to believe that for me that might be. I don't see my own point yet, but it might be one of my points. Trying to become better each day, better than I was yesterday. uh, and that's what I'm teaching my kid as well, to try to be better than we've been yesterday. That might be my point. But for these people with the power, do you know what I don't understand? Why are we allowing it?
Well, that's interesting that you say that because once you give somebody power over you, whether it's for safety, comfort, whether it's food, maybe they have something that they want, right? Or have something that you want. Once you give up your autonomy for that power, you're almost never going to get that level of autonomy back. So even like governments, religions, right? You give more and more and more, just like a narcissist in a relationship, you give more and more and more. They give you less and less and less in return. Same behavior pattern with everything. Now, you did say something that was interesting, right? What's the point of all of these religions and these governments like stopping people from fighting each other? Sure, there's the morality of fighting people and like the morality of not raping, right? There, however, if they can stop people, and this is a problem, and a two double-edged sword, right? If they stop people from fighting each other and stop people from killing, right? You stop the evolutionary chain of evolution, right? So you stop the fittest from surviving, and you make everybody equal at the same time. It's almost kind of like communism, right?
Mm,
Um,
yeah,
right? In some
dictatorship or
degree.
yeah, yeah.
But also once you've stopped people from fighting and you've created this huge population, guess what you have? More people to control. Now, I said I was going to talk something earlier about governments, right? When you're born into a society. There's all those layers of the onion, right? All of those layers of the onion drive you to one thing. We talked about this in our last podcast. If you weren't working, you're not paying. Let's say you work half a day rather than a full day, you're paying half a day's taxes. And if you're farming the other half of the day, you're not spending that money on food. So you're not paying the taxes, right? So if you look at it, the government is, you are under the control of the government to pay the taxes to fund the government to control you. Same thing with a religion. You give the money to the religion, you donate, you don't have to, right? You give the money to the religion, they tell you how to live your life. It it does coincide with how you believe though, right? So let's say if you resonate with something that somebody in the church is saying or resonate with something in the government is saying, you're more likely to lean towards that direction. Remember, towards pleasure, away from pain, right? You're going to go away from something that doesn't resonate with you. And that's kind of like the
The,
human
the
nature and the
same
behavior pattern.
Yeah. But what I would like to stop a little bit and just say that I don't want us to confuse religion with the institution that represents the religious part of the world. So when we're talking about religion, we're talking about the ones that are representing the religion. So the intermediaries, the ones that are bringing the message to the masses, right? We are talking
Mhm.
about those ones. We're not talking about the doctrines. We are not attacking ideologies or something like this.
Right. No, I'm bringing to the front like the reasoning behind each of those players in the role, right? So like I said, I can't discount a religion. I can't say it doesn't exist. I can't say this one's more right than that one, or this one exists and this one doesn't exist. I can't tell anybody to convert to this religion or die, or don't convert to that religion or die, right? Like that's not my place. You believe whatever you want to believe, right? And so like that's the way I look at it. Believe whatever you want to believe, just don't make me believe what you believe, right? So this everything I'm saying now is what I believe, but I'm not trying to make somebody believe it. So somebody can sit here and listen to this podcast, and maybe something that I've said resonates with them and they lean towards that, or maybe something you said resonates with them and they lean towards that, right? Towards pleasure, away from pain, right? Or maybe something that maybe they don't resonate with anything that we said and they move away from us. It's the behavior pattern that you'll see uh, throughout everything that humans do.
It's the relativity that we're finding in everything all the time. My favorite subject.
Wait, yes, way
Uh,
to swing it back to that previous podcast. That was a good one. There you go.
I was thinking in our little break when we froze a little bit before, I was thinking about the Homo sapiens. You know, when we are the last species, we've been more species of humans. So the Homo sapiens are the last ones remained. But do you know why? It's because they killed all the other ones. We or our ancestors, they killed everyone and they became these maybe more evolved humans. And this is why I asked about putting the rules, because they might stop the evolution with these rules. And I'm
Hmm.
not kidding. I might be smiling, but I'm not kidding. Somehow the species, when you have this, if we are going back to Darwinism, um, when you think about surviving, you think that the strongest ones survive, right?
Survive. Yeah.
If they're keeping it might sound harsh, but if they're keeping all of us in this on this planet and just trying to get along, the strong ones with the weak ones and so on, everyone has a place. We might not evolve as we should be. I'm just saying we might not evolve as we should be.
Yeah. I think that's something that is, I think I brought that point in, is definitely a good point. And it's good that you're seeing that too. But also, it's kind of like, why? What's the point? Well, if
Mm.
they have more population, you've got more people, making money, which is more people paying taxes, which is more people in power gaining more power, right? It's like going up the stairs of power, and it all starts at the bottom. And it's kind of crazy when you look at it. So it's like, what's the point of all of these things? Power and control.
And yes, exactly. And at the same time, keeping us under this control. How are they doing it? There is a saying in Denmark. They are saying that you're free, but in the end, you're doing what they want. Somehow, the rules
Hmm.
are bended somehow in a way that you cannot do what you want. But you have this feeling. We all have the feeling that we are free. But if
In
you
some
think about
degree, right? You're free in your mind.
mm,
So how they trap you, right, is if you try to, like, let's say you're under a government, right? Let's say you're under a government. We're not going to talk about religion. We're going to pull that away because this is more of like a structured thought process, right? If we look at government, let's say if you want to be without government, you want to be completely free, right? How do you do that?
mm,
Well, you've got to give up the safety and security and the benefits that the government is now giving you. So they've incentivized you, not you, I'm saying you as a collective, right? Anybody that's listening to this podcast, they've incentivized you to live under them for those things, right? Anytime you incentivize something, it will grow, right? If you incentivize something bad, that bad thing will grow. If you incentivize something good, that good thing will grow as long,
Mm.
I mean, it's all about that again, towards pleasure, towards reward, away from pain, right? You incentivize a bad thing, you've now turned that bad thing into a source of pleasure that people are going to move towards, right? You incentivize a good thing, now you've made something that people are going to move towards that to get pleasure, right?
Yeah.
No matter how you look at it, we like there's got to be a way to scale back those layers of the onions of society and like look at each individual act just like that. And it's scary to think like that, but looking at history, looking at how governments came and fell, looking at how countries rose and fell, looking at how uh, populations have tried to control other populations, whether it's for religious ideology or whether it's like a government trying to install another government someplace else.
Mhm.
What is it? What's the point? Control, dominance, power, money. It all comes down to towards pleasure, away from pain.
But aren't they? I mean, I think our leaders are really bad. This is why everyone is waiting. They. I've been laughing with my friends because everyone thought that. Uh, I mean, the people in power always said we shouldn't talk about aliens too much. We shouldn't say that they exist because the populations, the masses are going to get crazy. We won't. I mean, we are waiting for someone to save us from these bad leaders that we have, and that's how I feel, and I feel that so many people feel the same. We are just waiting for someone, for an alien or something to come and save us from these bad leaders, which if their fuel is power, they are short-sighted. They don't understand anything about human nature. And
Mhm.
we evolved from Homo sapiens, we have evolved from a spiritual point of view. So somehow we have different views on what's life after death, or what's behind some things that we were reading now, old books or old legends and so on. We are trying to find new things. And you're saying something about freedom of thinking. I'm not sure that a mother who with 4 kids, 2 jobs, financial problems, is still having the freedom. I mean, maybe she has the freedom, but she doesn't have the time. And we go back to the situation from Denmark, where you have this impression of freedom, but still somehow you don't have that freedom because you're busy doing something else. They are very careful for you to have something else on your mind while they're doing their games of power. These short-sighted games, they must be pretty, I don't know, not very smart.
Mhm. Right.
to
So the way I look at it is if somebody is there's two sides to this, right? At the same, but there's like a middle to it, right? If somebody is telling me one to believe something or to not believe something, right? If they're telling me one or the other, I automatically assume that they're hiding something.
Mm,
And so by doing that and not trusting that, right? You said aliens, right? They don't want you to think, like, keep it quiet. We don't want to talk about it, right? Even, any government's going to be quiet about aliens, right? They don't want you to think about it. They're afraid of mass hysteria. Why? Because it shatters the narrative of what they've wanted you to believe the whole time, right? They don't want you
yeah.
to believe in aliens, right? They could, I'm not saying they exist. I'm also not saying they don't exist, right? So it's kind of like, well, do they? Well, if somebody has an answer and they're telling me, or let's say if somebody is telling me definitively they don't exist, right? I automatically assume that they're trying to hide something. And that's like, I mean, and same thing with like religion, a religion that sits there and tells me we're the right religion. We're the ones to believe in. We're the right ones. We're the most original religion, right? And I hear that a lot from a lot of the different religions. They all have said that, right? But there's older religions that no longer exist anymore that also said those exact same things. So as soon as a religion says that to me, which is why I automatically assume they're trying to hide something, a motive of some sort. If they're
Yeah,
telling me they're the right one, they're the, whatever, I automatically assume that they're trying to hide something,
might
right?
be
And it's not that I don't trust people.
mm,
I I trust people as long as they don't betray me. However, I am critical of what people tell me. There's a difference. There's a
mm.
difference. There's a difference between being living in fear and being vigilant.
Yeah, living in fear. That's what I think. That's what I think. It's what they want
Mhm.
for us. And if you think about religions, most of them are it's not the religion or the doctrine itself, but how the leaders are bringing it to the masses with fear. So manipulation through fear. It's the same with the government. We live in fear, so we're not free. As long as we are living in fear, we cannot be free.
And that's it. There it
That's
is.
pretty sad.
It is very it's very sad. It's kind of like why I'm trying to look for that. I mean, I put out, a short video. You watched it. I mentioned it before on the podcast, the absolute freedom and peace one. And
It's
I've kind
great.
of like looked at it and like how to try to find that. And how do I find that? How do I find that for everybody? I can't,
Mm, you
because
can.
if we have fear, right? And what it comes down to is people live in fear, which gives the government a reason, incentivize the government to provide us security, right?
Yeah.
So they can have control, right? And this is all governments, not just one. Now,
I mean, this is how we allow this control that it is now
there it
by
is,
fear of the terrorists or I don't know, diseases,
right?
viruses, and yeah,
I mean, you got police forces, right? You've got, whatever, militaries, right? They're all designed to like give you this sense of security. I know here in the United States currently we are seeing like an increase in crime. um and I'm not going to go into why I believe that we're seeing that increase in crime, but I know that there is an increase in crime. And so I look at it, but also I'm seeing an increase in uh people that are committing crimes being incentivized to do that. There's less punishments, there's more rights for the criminals, right? Remember, go back to what I said. If I'm autonomous and I have my property, I should be allowed to protect my property the way I see fit. If somebody is stealing from me or hurting my family, I'm going to, they forfeit a part of their autonomy
yeah,
because they've imparted their will and control and dominance upon me, right? And
mm,
that's the way I look at it. If I don't need the police. That's the way I see it. I'm not saying defund the police. I think they're great. They help. I mean, and there's an emergency situation um where they could be helpful. I mean, I see that, right? But I'm saying I do not need the police on a daily basis. I don't. So let's get back to what's the point. And with that,
let me
go
say
ahead.
something about the fact that we people, we don't exist for them anymore. That's what I feel. Um, I haven't seen a politician in Europe to care about what we feel about the topic in a very long time. So they just don't care if we don't want something. They keep doing that. They keep pushing their agenda somehow without caring what we care, what we want.
I mean, that's happening across the globe.
Yeah, so we don't exist anymore. And I know I know it's been in Canada as well, and in Europe we had all the farmers on the streets. It was crazy. Farmers, truck drivers, and so many categories that were on the streets for a couple of months, even more, and no one cared about it. They
Mhm.
and the media, the mainstream media, never put them on the news.
Right?
That's
I
another
mean,
part.
and
So
you're
you
looking at who they're arresting in terms of what ideologies or what thought processes they're arresting across the globe, right? And they're only arresting one type of thought process, while the other thought process is allowed to proliferate, right?
yeah.
Whether they're destroying property, whether you're doing whatever, calling for, violence or whatever, the one side is allowed to do it, the other
Mm,
side isn't allowed to do it. And when they do stand up, then they're criminalized. They're looked at like, everybody else then plays the victim. And I'm tired of that. Like I'm literally
yeah.
I'm running out of patience for
Everyone,
that. So
every one of us is tired of that, but they just don't care. And this is why, because we are so busy trying to make our existence, somehow we don't have the power to oppose anymore.
no, you don't.
Yeah.
It's almost as if like people have given up their participation in their governments. But I mean, in some governments you didn't have participation anyway. But like at least in the United States, you had participation in government. We've given that up so much that
Mm,
even if we wanted to take it back, we wouldn't be able to at this point. So it's almost like the government is running us. We're not running the government. And that's kind of like the complete opposite of what our, in the United States, what our constitution, what our foundations, what we were built on, what we were supposed to be. I mean, we're talking like, I mean, what's the point? We talked about government. We talked about being born. You're born, you're told to go to school, get a job, go to work, and then you can retire, right? Well, what's the point of that? To pay taxes. You're paying taxes your entire life. And you're
yeah,
paying,
and
I mean, we talked about all of the taxes. Go ahead.
in Europe they want to move the retirement. I'm not sure if you have it there, but the retirement age, they want to push it a little bit more. Like you can retire at 70 years old now. So, and they want to push it even more because they say that you have a longer span of life and so on. But uh, even if we live longer than before, we have um, the same body, right? You cannot work 8 hours a day when you're 70 years old.
Mhm.
But they are trying to push it so we won't get so much money from the government because we are retired, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. You pay into this retirement with the government, at least here in the United States. It sounds like you have something similar there. You're paying into this retirement. They don't
Mm.
want to pay it out at the end. But they also want to get more from you out of your, income tax. We have income tax here. They want to get more, right? So again, towards pleasure, away from pain, towards money, or less, towards control, towards all of these things, and away from not having those things, right? It's kind of crazy.
Said before that your point is to find freedom. My point is to be better today than I was yesterday. And I think the point is different for all of us. It depends. It's again that relativity that I love so much. Every one of us can establish what's their point for their life. I would like to know one day what's the point of everything, like the universe. Why does the universe exist? Why does the planets exist? Why does the water exist? Why does the sun exist? Why does the black hole exist? I would like to know this, but it's impossible. At least for now, it's impossible. So what we can do is to find our own point for our lives, our own meanings for our lives, and just
Mhm.
follow them as much as we can in this situation going on the planet right now.
Absolutely. Well, thank you everybody for joining us for this episode of Life Chronicles and Deep Dives podcasts. We'll catch you in the next one, but if you have any comments, questions, concerns, you can leave them in the comment section below, and we will link our websites in the description box. And we'll see you in the next one.